Some nights change you forever, not because of what happened, but because of what you'll never be able to prove. Jake was an ordinary man, a contractor, husband, quiet guy. He never imagined that letting his sister-in-law stay with them for a few weeks would lead him to question everything he knew about right and wrong, about himself. It started with a whisper in the dark, a gentle hand, a body beside him that wasn't his wife's. He thought she was sleepwalking. At least, that's what made sense at the time. But the days that followed brought silence, unease, and a chain of events no one could stop. This is not a story of betrayal, not in the way you think. It's a story about boundaries, temptation, silence, and the kind of secret you bury so deep it changes the way you look in the mirror. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. We bring you powerful, real stories that reveal the complex, fragile, and sometimes dark parts of the human heart. And trust me, you won't want to miss the end of this one. It was around 2:11 a.m. when Jake first stirred. The house was silent, save for the faint hum of the heater. Emily's steady breathing beside him was familiar, grounding. But something felt off. The weight on the mattress shifted, not the usual tug of a sleeping spouse turning, but something slower, intentional. He opened his eyes. Someone was there. Not beside him, on his side of the bed. He froze. There was a figure kneeling next to him, almost leaning in. The shape, the long hair, Lila, his wife's younger sister. She was wearing one of Emily's oversized hoodies. Her eyes were open, but vacant. Her hand was resting lightly on his chest. Fingers spread, barely touching, not moving. Jake didn't say anything at first, just held his breath. She looked at him, or maybe through him. "Lila?" he whispered. No response, no blink. She stayed like that for a few seconds longer, then slowly stood, turned without a word, and walked out of the room. He didn't sleep the rest of the night. In the morning, the house smelled like burnt toast and coffee grounds. Emily was in her robe, scrolling through her phone at the kitchen counter. Lila had left early for class, apparently. She'd left a note on the fridge. "Back by 6. Don't wait for me." Jake sat down, unsure of how to bring it up. "Did Lila ever sleepwalk as a kid?" he asked casually, pretending to stir his coffee. Emily looked up. "Sleepwalk? No, not that I remember. Why?" He hesitated. "She came into our room last night." Emily raised an eyebrow. "To get what?" Jake paused, then shook his head. "Maybe she was confused. I don't know. She didn't say anything." Emily frowned slightly, but didn't press. Just went back to her phone. Jake told himself it had to be sleepwalking. Her face had been blank, her movements slow and strange. But then again, that hand. The way it rested, the silence. It wasn't frantic or disoriented, it was deliberate. And yet, she hadn't said a word. He tried to push the thought away, rationalize it. People did weird things in their sleep. Maybe she'd had a nightmare, maybe she wasn't even awake. But as the day went on, he found himself remembering her hand. The weight of it. The way his chest reacted, not with fear, not entirely, with something else. That night, he triple-checked the lock on their bedroom door. Emily laughed at him. "Since when are you paranoid?" He smiled weakly. "Just weird dreams last night." She curled into him as they lay in bed. "You work too much. Your brain never turns off." He nodded, but in the back of his mind, one thought looped endlessly. Was it a dream? Or a door I'd never meant to leave open? It was supposed to be temporary. Lila had called one Sunday evening, her voice tight and apologetic. Her roommate had moved out suddenly. New job, new state, no warning. She needed somewhere to stay for a few weeks while she figured things out. Emily hadn't even hesitated. "Of course, come," she'd said, already setting up the guest room. "Your family." Jake had nodded, smiled, said the polite things. But something in his gut shifted that night. Maybe it was the way Emily lit up when Lila arrived, or maybe it was how Lila hugged him. Long, familiar, soft. She smelled like citrus shampoo and winter. Lila was easy to have around. Too easy, maybe. She helped with the dishes, laughed at Jake's dry jokes, the ones Emily never noticed anymore. She folded the laundry without being asked. She had a way of moving through the house like she belonged, without ever demanding space. But it was the little things that started to wear on him. Like how she sometimes wandered into the kitchen late at night, barefoot, barely awake, mumbling about water. Or how she left her bedroom door cracked open, even when she slept. He'd pass by on his way to the bathroom and see her lying there, still, peaceful, the covers twisted around her legs. Once, He heard her talking in her sleep. Just fragments, names, breaths, a sound like someone whispering stop, or maybe don't. He told himself it was nothing. But after that night, the night with the hand on his chest, every interaction felt charged. Emily didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she chose not to. She and Lila would cook together, tease each other like teenagers. But sometimes Jake would catch Emily watching him when he talked to Leela, just for a second too long. Her eyes would narrow, but she'd say nothing. One evening, Lila came home late from class. She looked tired, pale. Jake opened the fridge to offer her something. She smiled weakly, touched his arm, just briefly, and said, "You're always so kind." He didn't know what to say. His chest tightened. Not from guilt, not yet, but from something that felt dangerously close to it. That night, Jake stood in the hallway for too long. The house was dark. Emily was asleep. Lila's door was cracked open again, like always. He told himself he was checking on her, just making sure she was okay. She'd seemed off, quiet. Maybe the stress was getting to her. He didn't go in. Just stood there, staring through the narrow gap. She was asleep, breathing slow, one arm above her head, the other resting across her stomach. He stood there until the floor creaked beneath him. Then he backed away and returned to bed. Emily shifted in her sleep as he lay down. "Everything okay?" she murmured. "Yeah," he whispered, "just getting some water." But he wasn't thirsty, and the guilt hadn't even begun. The first time he felt it, he was brushing his teeth. The hallway light was off. Only the faint glow from the bathroom mirror lit the space behind him. He leaned over the sink, rinsing, eyes heavy with the weight of another restless night. When he looked up, he caught something in the mirror, a figure standing in the hallway, just out of reach of the light. His heart jolted, then calmed. Lila. She stood barefoot in the dark, her hair loose, her expression unreadable. She wasn't looking at him, not directly, just standing there. Still. "Lila?" he called softly. No answer. She turned slowly, almost like she hadn't heard him at all, and walked away. He waited a moment before stepping out. The hallway was empty. He told Emily about it the next morning, laughing it off like it was funny. "Your sister's got some sleepwalking tendencies, I swear." Emily didn't laugh. She was quiet for a few seconds too long, then simply said, "She used to do that when she was stressed. Midterms, finals, she doesn't remember it." That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Lila didn't bring it up. In fact, she seemed more distant after that, more careful. She avoided sitting next to him on the couch. She didn't touch his arm in passing anymore. She kept her door closed. Jake knew he should feel relieved, but all he felt was exposed. At dinner, he watched her talk to Emily about class, about her thesis on behavioral disorders and childhood trauma. Her voice was light, her laugh soft, but her eyes flicked to him twice during the conversation. Fast, unreadable, like echoes of something unsaid. Later that night, he stood in the backyard, cold air cutting through his t-shirt. He stared up at the window to the guest room. It was lit. The curtain moved slightly. He couldn't tell if it was the wind or her. He stayed out there longer than he meant to. When he finally came back in, Emily was sitting on the edge of their bed, scrolling through her phone. "She talks in her sleep," Jake said, not looking at her. Emily glanced up. "I know. She ever do things in her sleep? Like walk around? Touch people?" The silence stretched. Then, she kissed a guy once in high school, thought she was dreaming. He told everyone. It was humiliating. Jake looked down at the floor. "She doesn't remember it," Emily added, voice low. "At least that's what she says." Neither of them spoke for a while. That night, Jake lay awake for hours facing the ceiling, his wife curled beside him, her breathing steady and warm. He tried to remember the exact weight of Layla's hand on his chest, the angle of her body, her eyes. He couldn't tell if he was remembering it or inventing it, and he wasn't sure which one was worse. The first message came at 2:38 a.m. Jake felt the vibration on his nightstand, half asleep, and reached for his phone with a groggy hand. The light from the screen hurt his eyes. A notification. One new voice message. From Lila. He hesitated. He glanced at Emily beside him, then put in his earbuds and hit play. It was short. Just a few seconds. Her voice was soft-breathy, as if she were whispering into her pillow. "Don't worry, I won't say anything." He sat up straight. Replayed it. Same voice, same tone, no background noise, just silence and those words. He got up, went to the bathroom, locked the door behind him, played it again. Don't worry, I won't say anything. He deleted it. His hands were shaking. The next morning, Lila was already gone. A note on the counter. Studying all day? Back late. Emily was sipping coffee, scrolling through something on her laptop. Jake sat down and tried to act normal. Did Lila seem off to you last night? He asked, casually. Emily didn't look up. She's stressed. Finals next week. I remember being the same way at that age. He nodded, said nothing more. But the words kept playing in his mind, not just what she said, but how she said it. There was no fear in her voice, no confusion. It was calm, measured, almost comforting. And that terrified him. That night, Lila came home after 10, quiet, straight to her room. She didn't say a word. Jake pretended to be asleep when Emily turned off the light. His ears strained to hear any sound, footsteps, the creak of a door. Nothing. But at 2:41 a.m., his phone vibrated again. This time it was a text. From Leela. Are you okay? Just that, 4 words. He stared at the screen, heart pounding. He didn't respond. He didn't sleep either. The next day, he deleted her contact, changed the name to a blank number. But it didn't stop the messages. They came once every few nights. Nothing explicit, nothing direct. Just enough to keep the air between them electric and heavy. I'm sorry if I scared you. Sometimes I don't know what I'm doing. You're not like the others. And then, a week later, do you remember the dream? He didn't know if she was sleep texting or if she wanted him to think she was. He never answered. But he never blocked her either. And deep down, he wasn't sure what scared him more. The thought that she might remember everything, or the thought that maybe he did too. It happened again 9 nights later. Jake had started sleeping with the bedroom door locked. At least, that was what he told himself. The truth was, he started locking it because he wasn't sure what he would do if it opened. But that night, he forgot. Maybe not forgot. Maybe chose not to remember. He woke to the sound of the door creaking, a soft footstep on the carpet, the distinct shift in air when someone enters a room. His eyes stayed closed. He told himself not to look. But then he felt it, that same presence at the edge of the bed, the mattress giving slightly. A knee, a hand, the covers shifting, and then the weight of her body sliding under the blanket. Slowly, without hesitation, he opened his eyes. She was facing away from him, curled slightly, silent. Her breathing was soft, even. She didn't say a word. Jake's heart pounded in his ears. He stared at the ceiling, paralyzed. Emily was still asleep beside him, her back to them both. Less than a foot away. He could smell Lila's shampoo. She wasn't touching him. Not this time, but she was there. Her presence was undeniable, warm, real, impossible to mistake. He didn't move, didn't breathe. Then, without a sound, Lila shifted, slid out of bed and walked away. The door creaked again, and she was gone. He lay there in the dark for over an hour before sitting up. The room was cold, the silence louder than anything he'd ever heard. In the morning, Lila acted as if nothing had happened. She poured herself coffee, asked Emily about her work meeting, showed no sign of the night before. Not even a glance in Jake's direction. Emily was relaxed, laughing, completely unaware. Jake felt sick. He kept expecting Lila to look at him, to give some clue, some flicker of acknowledgement, but there was nothing, and the absence of it, that unbearable normality, made him feel even more insane. That evening, Jake stood in the hallway outside Lila's door. He stared at the wood for a long time, listened, silence. He raised his hand to knock, lowered it. When he finally walked away, he heard her bed shift. Just once. Later that night, he found a note under his pillow, not folded, not addressed. Just a scrap of lined paper. 3 words, "You didn't move." No punctuation. He stared at it until his hands went numb. He didn't tell Emily. He burned the note in the kitchen sink after she fell asleep. And that night, he locked the door again. But the key, he left in the lock, on the outside. Jake had never paid much attention to the security cameras. They were an old habit from when they'd first bought the house. A couple of motion-activated units in the living room and backyard, synced to his phone. Mostly they caught raccoons, late-night Amazon deliveries, or nothing at all. But after the second time, after Lila got into their bed again, silently, deliberately, he started checking, just to be sure. It was 3 nights later when he found something. The system had flagged a motion clip at 2:13 a.m. Jake sat alone in the kitchen, phone in hand, coffee cold. He pressed play. There she was, Lila. She came into view from the hallway, barefoot, eyes wide open but blank. She stood in the middle of the living room, still for a long time, almost 2 full minutes, then turned slowly toward the hallway leading to the bedrooms. She moved like someone underwater. Jake watched, jaw clenched. In the footage, she didn't look seductive. She looked haunted. Her arms hung limp at her sides, fingers twitching slightly. Her lips moved, but no sound was recorded. He zoomed in, rewatched, tried to read them. They didn't make sense. And then she turned, walked back toward the kitchen, stopped near the fridge, just stood there. Another minute. Then she turned again and disappeared from the frame. The clip ended. That was it. He sat with the phone in his lap for a long time. It didn't prove anything. Didn't confirm what happened. Didn't show her in the bedroom. Didn't catch the door opening, the bed dipping. It was just enough to suggest something. And nothing. When Emily came into the kitchen an hour later, she found Jake staring out the window, mug in hand, eyes distant. "Did you sleep?" "A little." She opened the fridge. "Lila said she's staying on campus late tonight. Study group. Want me to save her some dinner?" Jake nodded. "Sure." His voice sounded normal, but his hand, the one holding the phone, trembled slightly. He thought about showing Emily the footage. But what would he say? "Look, your sister wanders the house like a ghost. Maybe she touched me in her sleep, or maybe I dreamed it, or maybe I wanted it." He locked the screen, slid the phone into his pocket, didn't say a word. That night, he dreamed of her. Not her face, just the feeling of her lying next to him, weightless and warm. In the dream, he didn't turn her away. In the dream, he reached back. When he woke, his hand was stretched toward the edge of the bed. Empty. And the bedroom door was shut, from the inside. Emily had changed. It was subtle at first, the way she started asking questions with no clear point. The way she let silences linger longer than usual. The way she watched, not him, but the space around him. One evening, she handed him a cup of tea and sat on the couch without saying a word. He joined her, and they just sat there. The television was on, volume low, some cooking competition neither of them cared about. After a few minutes, she said, "You've been quiet." Jake shrugged. "Long week." She nodded. "And with Lila here, it's a little cramped, I know." He didn't respond. Then she looked at him, really looked at him. "She says you're kind to her." His throat tightened. "She said that?" Emily sipped her tea. "It's not a bad thing." He forced a smile. "I try." But his chest was burning. That night, he went to bed before her, pretended to sleep. He listened as she moved through the house, the soft steps in the hallway, the creak of Lila's door, a quiet murmur, then nothing. She came to bed later, her side of the mattress dipping gently. She didn't touch him, didn't say goodnight. He stayed still, eyes open in the dark. In the morning, Emily was already up. The coffee was fresh. The kitchen was spotless. Lila wasn't home. "She stayed with a friend last night," Emily said, stirring sugar into her cup. "Group project ran late." Jake nodded. "Did she say when she'd be back?" Emily looked at him. "Do you want to know?" There was no smile, no sarcasm, just the question, clean and plain and sharp as a blade. He swallowed hard. "I just want to make sure she's okay." Emily leaned against the counter. "I think she is. The question is, are you?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Emily walked out of the kitchen. The next few days felt like a slow unraveling. Lila returned, quiet but polite. She stayed in her room more, ate dinner with them like nothing had ever happened. Smiled at Jake like he was just her sister's husband. Emily said nothing, but her eyes, they missed nothing. She began folding laundry that wasn't hers, checking his phone when she thought he wasn't looking, moving things in the house, just slightly, a picture frame tilted, a book out of place, like she was mapping his reactions. One evening, she left a bottle of wine open and poured only one glass. He waited for her to join him. She didn't. He drank it alone. That night, when he reached to lock the bedroom door, he hesitated. He left it slightly open. When he lay down, Emily was already asleep, or pretending. He stared at the ceiling, counting his breath. 3 rooms down, Lila's door creaked. He didn't move, not because he was strong, but because part of him, the part he no longer controlled, was waiting to see who would. It was raining that night. Not hard, just steady. The kind of rain that made the world feel smaller, softer, like everything was wrapped in cotton. Jake had stayed late at the garage. He told himself it was for the invoices, for the quiet. But really, it was to avoid the dinner table. When he came home, the lights were low. Emily wasn't there. Her car gone. A note on the fridge. Dinner with Rachel. Back late. He exhaled, and then he saw her. Lila, curled on the couch, blanket pulled to her chin, the soft glow of a table lamp beside her. She was half asleep, or pretending to be. "Hey," Jake said quietly. She stirred. "Didn't hear you come in. I didn't want to wake you. I wasn't asleep." She sat up, rubbed her eyes, and for a moment everything felt normal. Too normal. Jake walked to the kitchen, poured water, stood in the doorway watching her sip her tea. She looked fragile in that light. Young, barely more than a girl. He hated himself for noticing. "I had a weird dream," she said. He waited. "You were in it." His throat dried. "Yeah?" She smiled faintly, not looking at him. "We were somewhere cold, like a cabin. You were holding my hand, I think." He said nothing. "I told you something," she added, softer now. "What?" "I don't remember." He nodded, unsure of what he was agreeing to. She stood up, still wrapped in the blanket, and moved toward him. "Jake," she said, voice barely above a whisper, "I think I love you." He stopped breathing. She was close now. Too close. "You probably think I'm crazy," she added, "but I feel it." He looked at her. Her eyes weren't vacant this time. They were full, awake. He wanted to step back or forward. He didn't know anymore. Then her face changed, confused. She looked down at the floor as if trying to retrace something in her own memory. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly. "What were we talking about?" Jake blinked. "What?" She tilted her head. "You said something when you walked in. I didn't catch it." He stared at her. "You don't remember?" "Remember what?" He said nothing. She smiled politely, like the conversation had never happened. "Good night," she said, brushing past him. He stood in the kitchen long after she disappeared down the hall, the glass of water still full in his hand. Emily came home an hour later, kicked off her shoes, walked to him and kissed his cheek without a word. He didn't sleep that night, and he didn't check if the bedroom door was locked. The morning after, Emily made pancakes, not from a box, the real kind. Buttermilk, brown just right. She hadn't made them in years. Jake sat at the table, the smell thick in the air, stomach knotted. Lila wasn't home. "She left early," Emily said, sliding a plate in front of him. "Said she had a paper to finish." He nodded, chewing slowly, the food turning to paste in his mouth. Emily sat across from him. No phone, no coffee, just her eyes. "I had a dream," she said. "You were in it." Jake looked up. "You and Lila," she added, her voice even. "You were standing in our bedroom. I couldn't move. I just watched." He swallowed hard. "It was probably nothing," she continued. "You know how dreams are." He wanted to speak, to ask her what she meant, to deny something, anything. But there were no accusations in her voice, only observation, like she already knew and chose not to ask. That evening, Jake came home to find the guest room door closed. For the first time in weeks, he knocked. No answer. He opened it. The bed was made. Perfectly. A note on the pillow written in her unmistakable handwriting. "Thank you for letting me stay." No name, no signature, no explanation. Jake stood there for a long time, reading the words again and again. Then he closed the door and didn't mention it to Emily. Life resumed. Lila didn't return. Emily stopped asking about her. The house quieted. For a while. One Sunday morning, months later, they were driving back from visiting Emily's parents. The silence between them had settled into something comfortable, like worn fabric. Not soft, but no longer cutting. As they crossed an intersection, Jake saw a woman standing on the sidewalk. Lila, hair shorter, coat heavier, eyes locked on his through the windshield. She didn't wave, didn't smile, just watched. By the time he turned his head again, she was gone. Emily didn't mention her. Jake didn't ask. That night, Emily curled into him. Her hand rested on his chest, exactly where Lila's had that first time. Jake stared at the ceiling. In the dark, Emily whispered, "You're with me, right?" He didn't answer. She didn't ask again. The motel was off the highway. Quiet, old, the kind with peeling numbers on the doors and faded curtains drawn shut even in daylight. Jake parked in the back, away from the lobby cameras. The sky was gray, heavy. He checked the mirror. No one behind. Room 108. He'd been here once before. He didn't knock. The door opened a second after he touched it. Lila, no words, no hesitation. Just the smallest nod as she stepped aside to let him in. The room smelled like bleach and something floral, fake, stale. There was a single bed still made, one chair by the window, a TV bolted to the wall, a Bible in the drawer that no one would touch. Jake stood in the doorway for a moment. She sat on the edge of the bed, crossed her legs, no smiles, no nervousness. Like this had always been the plan. She looked older now. Months had passed. Her hair was darker, cut shorter, her face sharper, but her eyes were the same, unreadable, deep, the kind of eyes that made silence feel like a conversation. Jake walked over, sat beside her. Still no words. She rested her head on his shoulder, like they'd done it before. And maybe they had. Maybe not like this. But somewhere, somehow, in dreams or silence or something worse. He closed his eyes. For a moment, there was nothing. No memory, no marriage, no morality. Just warmth, weight, the sound of the rain beginning to tap against the window. They left before noon. No one spoke. Jake didn't ask when they would meet again. Lila didn't look back. He drove home in silence, pulled into the driveway. Emily's car was there. When he entered the house, she was in the kitchen cutting apples. She looked at him, not suspicious, not angry, just tired. "Hey," she said. "Hey." She went back to cutting, and Jake walked past her toward the hallway, the bedroom, the mirror he couldn't face. Some secrets are buried with screams, others with silence. But the worst kind are buried alive. Some stories don't end with answers. They end with choices we pretend not to make, with doors we swear were never opened, with silences so deep they echo louder than the truth. Jake never confessed. Lila never denied. Emily never asked, and yet all three knew. If this story made you feel something, discomfort, empathy, or just that strange pull in your chest, subscribe to the channel. We tell stories like this, the kind that don't shout, but haunt. The kind that force us to look closer, not at others, but at ourselves. And maybe, just maybe, you'll see what no one dares to say out loud.